Flash. He'll save every one of us.
Will he?
I've had that in my head all week.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do it for quite a while. So here I am singing it out loud really badly on a podcast.
That's not the only thing you've had in your head all week, is it?
What do you mean?
Because you were threatening to say things to me. This is the rare instance of you seeing a film before me and...
having knowledge that you don't have.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say it was for a week. It was for a 24-hour period, if we're being factually correct.
Yeah.
A 24-hour period that I had seen The Flash. And I'll not do that all the way through, I promise. That I had seen The Flash, and then you hadn't seen The Flash, and I knew all the things about The Flash, and you didn't. That was a mighty moment for me, quite frankly.
You see, I don't think of Flash Gordon when I think The Flash.
Why? Why not?
Because
How can you not?
I think, like, Jacko from Brushstrokes.
Oh, I don't know Brushstrokes. Why do you think... Oh, is it because he did an advert for Flash, the washing
For
thing?
years.
Right.
For years he did it. Carl Howman, I think his name is, who was Jacko on Brushstrokes.
Such an old
Which
reference.
actually ties into the other thing that we're reviewing tonight. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, and I mean, when I was on holiday and Michael Jackson passed away, my friend Neil, hi Neil, texted me to say Jacko's dead, because it was the day before. Like, you got it was just a normal phone at the time. Like, we didn't have like mobile internet to get news.
You won't
alerts.
get like breaking news or anything.
And I assumed he meant Carl Howman.
That is your reference point.
Yes.
We're not going to think about, the king of pop and probably one of the most played artists in the world called, known as Jacko. No, we're going to think of a guy from Brushstrokes. That is how your mind works, though.
Do you remember
That's
Brushstrokes
absolutely right.
at all?
No, I've just said that about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, right. I mean, well, I think it's my Allo Allo.
Oh, really? Do you think so? I mean, all I can remember is a guy with, which I'm thinking is this guy that you're like mentioning, this Carl guy with like some dungarees on or some
Yes.
overalls on. But
Carl
then
Howman.
I'm thinking that may be from the Flash advert because he was cleaning it. Right, okay. Tell me, is it about painting and decorating? Now
Yes.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
He
Okay.
was a painter and decorator. A bit of a Jacko lad. Hit with the women.
Hence brush strokes, right? Yeah. Okay.
And then it was just about his life, and he would meet women. It was one of them very gentle, late 80s, early 90s comedies.
Mm-hmm.
There was, he worked for a company who did painting and decorating.
Right.
I bet there's some really, really famous people in this when I look at it now.
I bet there's some very problematic plotting.
So the boss of the company is Gary Waldhorn.
Oh, Gary Waldhorn, who was in here comes one of my favourites.
Yes.
Who was in I'm a priest and I'm a lady.
Vicar of Dibley.
I couldn't remember. Vicar of Dibley, right? Yeah. So he's the grumpy, slightly older statesman in the Vicar of Dibley.
Yes, they went to a pub, which was run by Elmo. Yeah, not
Elmo?
who was played by.
Hello. That's what
not Tickle Me Elmo. He was played by the guy who was in Maid Marian and Their Merry Men.
Oh, really?
Yes. Played Rabies.
He plays Rabies.
Yes.
Yes, I can't think of his name, but yeah, I know exactly who you mean. Oh, was it Howard something?
Howard Lou Lewis.
Oh, yes. My Maid Marian and Her Merry Men knowledge comes to the fore.
And then, halfway through, I believe, spoilers for Brushstrokes.
Oh,
should we do a spoiler section?
I think we should have a special spoiler section for Brushstrokes.
Halfway through, he wins the pools.
The pool.
Yeah.
I love the pool. Yeah.
And closes down his pub and opens up a wine bar.
Oh, wow.
Called Elmo's, which was all pink with flamingos in and stuff
Because
like that.
obviously a wine bar's going up in the world, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah, in that very specific
It's very
time.
80s, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's mentioned in one of the other things that we're watching tonight.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that then.
Spoilers, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anything. It's a very random reference. So, okay. So, I've completely forgotten where we were. I was singing Flash Gordon. You're talking about Brushstrokes. What are we doing on today's podcast?
We are talking about The Flash, and we are talking about the first two episodes of the sixth season of Black Mirror.
Well, yeah, I would say yes to that. I'm presuming that's right. Yeah, a really good amount of knowledge from me on Black Mirror now.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's the season that's just out now.
The new one that's come out. So we're going to do things slightly differently today, because typically we have a TV section followed by a film section, but because both of these pieces of pop culture entertainment are full of stuff to talk about and to really get into, we've decided that we'll do a non-spoiler section for both The Flash and those first 2 episodes of Black Mirror, so you can listen away to our very general review of them to your heart's content. And then if you haven't seen either of them, you can leave us at that point. But if you have seen them and you'd like to listen to us delve into the depths of both the very, very interesting plotting of The Flash and first 2 episodes of Black Mirror, stick around with us and we'll do spoilers for both of those. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah.
Have I said that right?
Not really.
Okay.
But yeah. I think we're going to have to do it a bit weird, because there's not a lot we can delve into on Black Mirror. I think we can talk about the themes and probably our history with the show and maybe Charlie Brooker, but yeah, I think there's not a lot that you want to delve into, because I think the joy of Black Mirror is going in with as little knowledge as possible.
Absolutely. So we'll not do very much on that.
No. So let's do The Flash first.
Yes.
Not spoilers. We'll go into Black Mirror. We'll quite swiftly go into a spoiler section, and then we'll cover The Flash at the end. But if you want to jump around, we will put the timestamps in the pod notes. Right?
Okay, The Flash. Your history with The Flash, I think we'll do a bit of history for both of them. Your history with The Flash, what did you know going into this film?
Like, he was always a character that was around Batman, wasn't he? Like, growing up. Like, he was never in the 60s thing, I don't think. Not like the Green Hornet was, but yeah, he was always just someone who you kind of knew about. There was always like debate who was quicker, the Flash or Superman, stuff like that. And then obviously there is both the Flash as played on TV, which I've never seen in the Arrowverse, but it has been played during the extended DC universe, or however they want to call it nowadays.
The DCEU.
Yeah, as by Ezra Miller, who is an actor who I really, really like, but I think it's safe to say has had some problems recently.
Absolutely.
There was a time where it was seemingly every week where they had been involved in some trouble with the police. They are apparently often getting help that they need, and I hope that they are. There are a lot of people who have said out loud online that they would not go see this film because of the presence of Ezra Miller, which I can understand. Yeah. It's not the choice that we have made, but yeah, I can perfectly understand it.
I didn't know anything about the Flash, so when you're talking about Batman having the Flash around him and, you know, going into your Green Hornet and that sort of stuff, I just didn't have any of that background knowledge. The first time I saw the Flash was in one of these DCEU films, and you can tell how much of an impact that's had on me because I can't name the actual film, and I've seen all of them as well. I really like Batman in terms of the DC comics, and the films that have come out of that. I really like the darkness of Batman. Batman is my favourite superhero if I was asked that question. So I often gravitate more towards DC, but only because of Batman.
Okay.
Marvel it's fine, I watch them, they're fine, but I gravitate towards them. So I'm always quite interested in a DC film. But clearly there have been a lot of issues, which I'm not going to rehearse, around Zack Snyder and changes made, and Ben Affleck not feeling happy in the role of Batman, or his Batman film not actually coming to fruition. So there's all this sort of history to it. So I was really surprised when this film started to get a bit of a buzz around it. Obviously, as you've alluded to very articulately, you've got what I'm going to call the Ezra Miller issue, which comes about quite frequently, unfortunately, at the moment, where a main star seems to be having a lot of personal problems that really impact on an audience's ability to enjoy the film, or to even, go and see the film, as you've said. I'm able at this point, whether rightly or wrongly, to divorce that from the film. there are various other actors as well that I've been able to sort of look at the work on the film, the work of the other people, and the people who've put their effort into creating the film as well, away from like the main star, but all those people involved, and I've been able to park it, like I say, rightly or wrongly. But there's been that element to it, but also there's been this sort of, did you see on one of the posters someone, and I think it was a Twitter quote, but someone had put like one of the greatest superhero films of all time, and when the trailer came out, which I watched, I don't know if you did you see it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. When the trailer came out, I go
to the cinema every week.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's true.
It's been a hell of a lot spent on marketing.
But sometimes you do try and avoid certain trailers. I know in the past you've sort of, especially when we've been together, you've kind of like when certain trailers have come up, you've kind of put your fingers in your ears and looked away, sort of thing, to avoid being spoiled. When the trailer came out, I was like, this is looking really good. So I went into this film with a huge amount more anticipation than I think I would have done if it was, a couple of years ago.
So why? Because you've not been to see a Marvel film for a long time.
Oh no, you're right.
Spider-Man?
No, I haven't seen
Doctor Strange.
So, well, would you classify Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh, of course, yeah. Last week, yes.
A couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Went to see Volume 3.
You've not been to see a Marvel film for at least 2 weeks.
I know what you mean, because I haven't seen. So I've not seen the Spider-Man. Spider-Man into the whatever it is now.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. I've not seen either of those. I've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp or whatever that one's called, Quantumania. Yeah. But I did see the Doctor Strange.
Didn't see Thor.
I didn't see Thor, and I did see what am I thinking? I saw Black Panther, the Wakanda Forever, but I also saw. Sorry, this is just a list of things I've seen.
It's also a list of how wrong I am.
Yeah, but I saw when I'm thinking about the multiverse, because that was the point that you were making. I have seen Spider-Man No Way Home.
That was the one I was referring to.
That was the one you were referring to. So, a smattering of.
You've been selective
Marvels.
with your Marvel films. Whereas
at
one point, I think you would go see most of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right, yes. It would have been sort of like, I would have had to have seen them to sort of follow the next one and the one after that, and I'm kind of finding that I can dip in and out. But I had more anticipation going into this. Did you feel, having seen the trailer, did you feel like there was more of a sense of, this might be good about it?
I heard the buzz quite early because this was shown in an early form during CinemaCon, which is obviously an industry event, not based around critics, but largely based around the cinema industry rather than specifically critics. I'm sure there were critics there, and there was a hell of a lot of buzz coming out of that. And I think that's where that quote, "one of the best superhero films ever," was. And having seen, I like any film that takes a swing. And it was quite clear that this was taking a swing. My feeling was that there was far too much revealed in the trailer.
I agree.
Because let's say what was in the trailer. There is Affleck, there is Keaton Batman, there is Supergirl.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd have saved something.
I would have saved something. Yeah, absolutely. Or at least some of the very special lines.
Yes.
Especially those that Batman says. I think those are very precious because Batman doesn't say that much. He's not a character that's, chewing his mouth off all the time. So when he does say something, it does have this sense of gravitas. And I felt that they really gave Affleck and Keaton all of those special lines. I knew they were coming because I'd seen them in the trailer. I
feel there's a downward tinge to your voice when talking about this film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So what did you think?
I'm really, really mixed about it. I've sat and I've listened to the Movie Robcast review. I've listened to the Cinemas review. I have tried. Well,
because that's literally come out like 20 minutes before we started recording this.
I know. I have really tried my hardest to come to a conclusion about this film, and I can't. I'll tell you what my problem was. It got me off on the wrong foot, and it's a really personal thing, actually. There is an action scene at the beginning of this film, and after watching that action scene, which is meant to be comedic, and I understand that a huge amount, a huge part of the world watching it will see it as comedic. But after watching it, I was on a row where I was near the stairs, and I nearly walked. I nearly got up, walked out, and went, nope, not for me, thank you very much. It's a scene that puts people, I'm going to be really, really careful, but it puts certain people in peril. And it is meant to be comedic. There's something involving a microwave as well that I found absolutely horrific. And it's meant to be funny. And like I say, I've listened to people who find it funny. I've read reviews that really love that tone to it. But for my personal circumstance of having had a loss and also just being quite sensitive around, people in peril, I just couldn't cope with it. And I wondered at that point whether it just lost me tonally and I wasn't able to pick it back up. Having said that, the bits involving Batman I loved.
Right.
And I admired what it was trying to do. And later moments I laughed at. So comedic moments I laughed at. And that's kind of how I've been living my life for the last sort of like 48 hours, is going, oh, it's really good. And then going, oh, but it's terrible. Oh, but it's really good. Oh, but I hated it. And I've been up and down like that.
Okay. So on that first action scene, I thought it pushed the boundaries of bad taste. I wasn't offended of it personally, but I can understand why people would be. What I do think it crossed the line of was tone, because this to me is like putting a joke from Scary Movie into a Scream film, and it is absolute. It's farce, and it is almost like. It's almost Looney Tunes in its...
Oh, absolutely. It's almost cartoonishly drawn as well.
It's like putting... Yeah, it is like the camera pans from one situation to another, and it's absolutely... Each one more ludicrous than the next.
And actually, the graphics don't make it look realistic. So that there was part of me going, well, I'm just watching a cartoon. But at the same time, because of the nature of the content, I couldn't get into the fact that it was funny.
Yeah, to me, it was out of tone with the rest of the film, and I found the rest of the film funny. I am more positive on this than I think you are. Like I say, I like films that take swings, and I think this film takes a massive swing and clips about half of it. I've heard people absolutely destroy the third act of this film. Yeah. For me, I didn't mind it, but there's an asterisk next to it, for which we'll have to get into in spoilers. I sat back, and I think, because I'm not invested in the DCEU,
okay,
I think I was just like, yep, take me there.
Just go for it,
there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Ezra Miller is perfectly fine as Barry Allen.
This is interesting, because I've heard people say that Ezra Miller is like, that they are the only person who can play the Flash, that they are this amazing presence, and putting to one side and divorcing everything that's going on in their personal life, I just didn't feel that. I was sitting there sort of going, I kind of feel that someone else could also play this just as well.
Yeah, I think there's
so that's interesting, right?
I think
okay.
There's an energy. Yeah. I think in the Justice League, I think it was largely a annoying character, and especially in the there's one of the two versions, and I can't remember, and I'm not going back to watch them to work out why, but one of them, Barry Allen is really, really annoying, and just every time they're on screen, it just really wound me up the wrong way. Just almost like comedy sidekick but out of place with the rest of the film. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this film. I thought, this is a long film. It's 2.5 hours. You had mentioned about 4 times since coming back about, well, it's long. For me, it sailed by.
Really?
I did not feel the length one bit.
You see, Kathy and Dave from the cinema said the same thing, and I was just like walking around going, have I seen a different film? Have I been put off by that beginning? Because I was checking my watch. I was checking my watch all the time, and I was counting down, and I was sitting, and at certain points I was bored. I wonder.
I had no problem whatsoever with the length. So yeah,
that really surprises me, because if there's anyone in the world that I would think would go into a 2.5-hour film and come out and rub their hands together and maybe have a little clap and go, right, right, that should have been half an hour shorter than it was. It's you. So I'm really surprised with that.
Don't get me wrong, I think there probably could be half an hour cut out of it. There's plenty of fat that you could trim off on there, but it sailed along for me. I wasn't looking at watch, and I think I kind of looked down and realised, shit, we're in the middle of the third act here. So yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, it's a recommendation. I think we need to talk about spoilers quite urgently.
Yeah. And look, it's a recommendation from me as well.
Yeah.
So anyone who's thinking about going and seeing it, I would absolutely go and see it. Just, I find films that are divisive more interesting, quite frankly. So
I think the main problem with this is, obviously, this is a multiverse film. And a film came out 2 weeks before that did the multiverse better. And also specific things about the entire world of... Because this delves into the world... Like, as we mentioned, there are 2 versions of Batman in this. This delves into alternate universes where there are different versions of superheroes.
Well, it's a time travel film, really, isn't it? At the heart of it.
And I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse does that better as well. It explains almost identically parts of this part of this universe.
So if you've seen that already, you're thinking, oh well, it's been done better elsewhere.
I mean, they must have watched it and just gone, fuck.
I know. But well, maybe they should. Sorry, maybe they should just find something different to do. Maybe it shouldn't be all these. Maybe if it was just sort of like there is a. I mean, because we haven't even talked about what the film's about, which is essentially Barry Allen is going back in time to try and save his mother. That's that is the through line here. I would have loved to have seen a bit more of that. I didn't feel that we spent enough time in that plot. It was all about all the other fancy things going on around it.
I've got a bit to say about that as well.
Yeah, I know you've got things in spoilers.
There isn't. I mean, it is an excuse to go see who we see in various different suits.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's an absolute MacGuffin, the death of his mother and going back to try and stop his mother dying. It feels like an excuse to bring back some characters that we've loved and not seen for a while. But I'm fine with doing that.
But you're fine with it, yeah.
Because I don't give a shit about the wider universe. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there is Aquaman 2.
Yeah.
And then we're done. And
Blue
then Beetle...
James Gunn will take over, won't he?
Yeah, and Blue Beetle is the first of his films, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, right, okay.
I might be wrong, but...
I don't know. I saw the trailer for Blue Beetle and didn't know anything about it. I got very confused waiting for this one, so yeah. Okay, so that's our non-spoiler take on The Flash.
Yeah.
Just remind me, we're doing non-spoiler take on the first 2 episodes of Black Mirror now.
Yes.
This is very difficult for me because we've changed. So change for me is hard. So I will keep coming back to you to be like, where am I going to put all the little clips in the edit?
So we have seen the first 2 episodes, as we say. The first one is called Joan is Awful. The second one is called Loch Henry. I think we're going to be very, very loose with this because, as we say, you want to know as little as possible. Close your eyes when you go on the Netflix menu, if you can.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I've already seen something, like a later episode. I've seen who's in it, and I've seen the context of it. I'm really annoyed about it as well.
I don't know anything, so I'm doing well. I mean, these will seep out over the next few days, so that's why we're trying to get through them as quickly as possible. But, yeah. So the first one, Joan is Awful. And each one of these... Each episode of Black Mirror shines a light at like one part of modern life, normally around media or like telephones, TVs, films, technology.
Some people call it sci-fi, but I think that's an interesting question that we might come back to.
Yeah, okay. The first episode kind of shines a light on what streaming services know about you and what, not even streaming services, but I guess just the media in general.
The things that we are signing up to, the things that we don't really realise because we just scroll through things and press accept, and how far that could actually go.
Do you read terms of acceptance when you do this?
Well, it's interesting,
in your job,
isn't it? Because my background is in the law, so I do tend to have a little bit of a look, but there is that trade-off, isn't there, of am I going to use this service or am I not? you know?
Yeah.
And if I want to use the service, no matter what it says in the T's and C's, I'm kind of going to accept, you know, I don't have any bargaining power to go back to someone and say, oh, by the way, I really don't like clause 6.1a, unless it's got something in it that is so abhorrent, for example.
There are ways around this. If you post on your Facebook timeline that you don't want your personal pictures and videos to be used, that means you get away with it, because I've seen loads of people do it.
No, don't cut and paste this into your... I mean,
yeah, don't share, cut and paste it into your timeline.
But this is it, isn't it? I mean, I know we're laughing about it because obviously you've got a background in technology, I've got a background in law. We know that doesn't work. We know that Zuckerberg isn't sitting up there looking at everyone's posts going, oh well, so and so from Bradford said that, you know, put this into their thing, so we will never will not harvest any of their images. So we know that to be the case. But doesn't it show you though that people will believe these, that people are unlikely to question and to understand, and they just take that full whack and stick it into their Facebook post and don't even critically analyse, oh, where has this come from? Would this even work? I find that fascinating. I think it talks to a number of the things that are going on in Joan is Awful as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you like the episode?
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Black Mirror can be... There are certain episodes that really don't get a lot of love, and there are others that always come up on like the top 10s. Like San Junipero is now almost like universally accepted as like the best Black Mirror episode of all time. I think there are others that are absolutely up there. I love San Junipero, but there are others that are up there, and some of the ones that are darker don't tend to get the love that other ones do.
I mean, I remember watching the national anthem when it first came on, not knowing what the hell this was, only really watching it because I've loved Charlie Brooker since like the days of TV Wipe and News Wipe, and I think it's a real shame that, like, I've held a little bit against Black Mirror, because this does take him away from doing more that acerbic commentary on the media and the news that I really, really enjoy. And we get this once every 3 or 4 years, whereas we got that once a week for like 6-10 weeks a year. These are very, very meta. And both of these, and we're not going to go too far into it, both these almost bite the hand that feed. There is both things around streaming in these two episodes which I find interesting that this is where he's going for. And obviously everything's been signed off, and I don't think anyone's going to be coming knocking on Charlie Brooker's door saying you need to calm down with some of this. But going on to Loch Henry, unless have you got anything more to say on?
Well, only to say that I have not enjoyed Joan is Awful as much as other people. So
really?
Flash. Yeah, and again, I've read reviews. I've listened to a couple of podcasts that have gone into it, and it's been overwhelmingly, you know, good, positive, very good. You know, I went along for the ride, but I found it a little bit surface level, and it's going back to what I've said. I like episodes that have a real sense of darkness to them. I really like. I can't think of another word from dark, but that's what I'm going to say. I really like things that keep me up at night with Black Mirror. I like to be scared by it, and this didn't scare me. It was more of a rollicking ride through this particular journey. I found the ending very confusing. Maybe that also didn't help. I didn't really understand what was happening, but I did really enjoy the performances. I enjoyed the comedic meta side of it, as you've pointed to, but it definitely wouldn't be up there. You know, it's a bit of a throwaway episode for me, but I know I'm in the minority because everyone else is saying that they're really enjoying it.
Okay. So did you get what you wanted from Loch Henry then?
Absolutely, yes. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? And I wonder whether that it just spoke to me so much more, Loch Henry. And Loch Henry is doing the same thing, like you've said. He's really seems to be going and looking at the TV industry, and Loch Henry is exactly the same. It's really an exploration of true crime.
Yes. And
people's apparent mad desire for more and more true crime, and also the streaming services wanting to put true crime and getting a lot of money out of that, which I personally, it spoke to me more because I'm someone who really enjoys true crime, and I struggle with that on an ethical point of view because I know that there are problems with it. So it really tested my boundaries in terms of, thinking about those ideas. But also, I just found it a really compelling piece of television. I wanted to watch it. I was like sort of 15 minutes into it, and then you came up to bed, and I was like, can I get away with you going to sleep and me getting my tablet back out again, watching another 15 minutes, not like secretly, like just saying, you just go to sleep and I just want to see what happens next. I just want to see what happens. I think the acting in Loch Henry is really good. There's a young guy in particular who plays a character called Davis, I think it is, but he's like our central. But he's taking us through the story. He returns home, and so he's our protagonist. And I thought he was a really lovely presence.
Yeah, I mean, he's in Atlanta, but to be honest, I don't recognise him.
No.
He was in Dracula. He was in Peaky Blinders, which seems to be where he was.
Right, okay. And
I don't recognise. He's the one of the five main characters in this that I don't recognise.
Oh, okay, because I really liked his girlfriend as well, who again I don't know the actor's name, but the girlfriend is called Pia.
Myha'la Herald is her name. She's excellent in Bodies. That's what I know her from.
Oh, right, okay. And then there are other, which I'm not going to go into, but there are other actors that we all know and love, and who one in particular pops up, and I just kind of clapped my hands together and laughed. So I was very excited about. It thematically it works for me. The way that it's actually created, the way that what it is works for me. And I love the acting. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but that's because I know the genre. But that didn't detract for me. That didn't take away. I absolutely knew what was it. And maybe that's what Charlie Brooker wants me. Charlie Brooker is showing me things that because I've watched so many murder mysteries, because I've watched, every Agatha Christie and all of those sorts of things, and watch all the documentaries. Maybe I'm meant to notice these things because that's what those things do anyway. So yeah, I really loved it. You are not a true crime aficionado, and this isn't the sort of thing that you would traditionally flock towards.
Yes.
Given that, what did you make of it?
So I love this. I think I love anything. Is it a spoiler to say I love anything with a twist? Yeah.
I mean, all of Charlie Brooker's things have a twist. I don't.
There is a twist in all of these.
There's
shows.
a twist in everything. Yeah, and sometimes multiple.
And I didn't see where this was going. You obviously knew there would be something else that we would find along the way. I have to say I didn't see that this was going the way that it did.
Oh, really?
I mean, I probably should have done. In hindsight,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to think about these things though. I don't try and work these things out like you do.
Oh well, I was looking specific, and once I saw one thing, that was it. I knew exactly what was happening.
I mean, I love the references to Bergerac. That's always a good thing.
Is this where brushstrokes come in?
Yeah, at the end, there's an episode. Someone's watching a tape of Bergerac, and there is as it fades out, it's like. That's all for Bergerac this week on UK Gold. Coming up next, Jacko gets into
okay.
So yeah, UK Gold favourite brushstrokes.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there is generally terrifying moments. I think that I love anyone sort of coming back to a hometown, which is largely around this and having been away. And the people who stayed behind and the people who've gone on. There are characters in this that I think just get it perfect, totally. Absolutely spot on the tone.
Very comedic, but also a little bit dark, and there's that lovely mix, isn't there?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing.
And the scenery's beautiful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Scottish Highlands is nice.
Who knew?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the other episodes in this. I think we'd leave it there and go into spoilers.
Yeah.
If you're leaving us there, thanks a lot. I think it's safe to say that we're trying to get out a bit more regularly.
Yeah, definitely.
I think oddly, we've had some editorial discussions off the mic.
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because normally we just do it live on the podcast.
And we've kind of got into a rut where we, for whatever reasons, we left it a little bit, and then there was loads of stuff, and then we'd watch some things and go, oh, we need to wait a couple more weeks until we've got some more stuff, which I know for you is an arse to be editing. So, yeah.
So we're going to do things, well, hoping anyway, because we do have a small person who tries to stop us from doing these things with his magical sleep patterns, but we're going to try and get things out just a little bit quicker. So we're hoping to do the next couple of episodes of Black Mirror, get them sorted, and then get out another podcast just talking about it a bit like this.
And also Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yes, and we've got other things that are coming up as well. There's Barbie, there's Oppenheimer, so we'll definitely be going seeing those. So yeah, trying to get things out a little bit more frequently, and maybe some shorter podcasts. That'd be good for editing.
Yes. But yeah, if you are leaving us here, thank you. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Honeymoon Pod, and you can drop us a review on iTunes or drop us a star rating on Spotify or Pocket Casts or a lot of other podcast apps. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Spoilers.
So we're going to do spoilers for Black Mirror, so we're just going to do back to back, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think I might have got it wrong in the initial introduction and said spoilers for The Flash first.
We didn't.
This is why I get very confused.
So Joan is awful. Mm-hmm. Do you know Annie Murphy?
No. I had to look her up afterwards.
This might be part of the issue.
Okay.
Of you not understanding
Not
the
really
ending,
understanding the ending. What was she in that I did know her in? What was it? No. See, I looked it up on Wikipedia and...
So she's in Schitt's Creek, that's
no,
where
it
most
wasn't
people
that. There
know
was
her.
another one where she's in... This is it. She's in Russian Doll season 2.
Oh, is she?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where I knew the face from. But apart from that I don't know it. But, I mean, I do get the concept of that it's all CGI, essentially. They're all deep fakes. But I just, that sort of hitting the machine and taking it down, I just feel I've seen it before. And it all felt a little bit rushed. Michael Cera shows up for, and does his little explaining bit. And it just didn't work for me. But that's just, it's a total personal preference on these things. I think it was all a bit too, we'll hit the machine and everything will die, but it's not real anyway. But it is kind of real. And Annie Murphy's there, but she's not.
But the main point of this is the fact that the Joan that we have been seeing is the Joan one step into the process. So Annie Murphy is playing Joan in the same way that Salma Hayek is playing Joan, in the same way. We are led to believe from the beginning that Annie Murphy is the
Joan.
Original Joan.
Yeah.
What actually happens is that we are actually watching a Netflix TV show or a Streamberry TV show, and she is not herself, and that's why they're saying, Michael Cera licensed his face to be, and he's the techie guy in.
But Annie Murphy is a real person in this world. So is she essentially the Salma Hayek character as
Yes.
we're seeing it?
We found out at the end that Annie Murphy is the Salma Hayek character who goes to see the original Joan after Joan shits herself in a church floor.
Right, okay. I didn't like that bit. I'm not a prude. And I'm not someone who doesn't, but I just didn't really like this whole concept of, I'm just going to have a big poo in front of someone's wedding. I just didn't like it. Sorry.
What's the most like out there thing you can do?
I could think of
dress
words,
a cheerleader,
honest,
draw a cock on your head, and go take a.
She looked a little bit like what's that? The Joker's missus.
Harley Quinn.
That's it. Yeah, she looks a bit like that. I thought that was quite interesting. But yeah, it just it was fun. Like I say, I went along for the ride, but plot wise, it just didn't grab me in the way that I really like the legal bits with the terms and conditions, because obviously that's my background. But when Salma Hayek, I think the meta-ness of it maybe got to me, because when Salma Hayek's turning up at a door and I am Salma Hayek, and it was funny, but I it didn't, if I had just stopped halfway through, I wouldn't have worried. I wouldn't have been thinking, wow, what was going on there, and I wonder how it all resolves itself. But you obviously have a much better view of it than I do.
I also like the fact that other selections on the Streamberry service were Loch Henry.
Yes, I saw that.
And also references to The Cat Burglar, which we covered.
Oh.
I'm the only person in the world who's been through this.
Wow.
Charlie Brooker's little cartoon selection and adventure thing. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was a really, really strong start, and I understand why you've done.
I'm not saying it was terrible. At no point. I mean, there are some episodes that I just really didn't get on board with in the past, or I've just kind of half forgotten. But I'm not saying that I've forgotten this. I really like the sort of the light ending with the two, like Annie Murphy and Joan in a coffee shop, and I like that. I liked the idea that she was working for this tech company, this sort of Sonical, which I take to be like an audio company. It might even be like a Spotify or something like that. So she'd be working for them. She clearly wasn't fulfilled in her job, and all she wanted to do was go and have this coffee shop. And in the end, she has the coffee shop, and Annie Murphy comes and sees her. And yeah, I like that nice sort of almost rom-com-y element to it. But I won't really think about it for much longer. Not like I will with Loch Henry. Loch Henry will make me think about my consumption of true crime, and it'll make me think about those sorts of things and how having success does not equal happiness in the TV world. You know, that's what it really makes me think. The second episode.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, if I don't have to listen to you talking about a horrific crime on this podcast again.
Yeah, I know.
And then you go, oh, you do like some dark stuff. Excuse me? What?
I know. But what a brilliant takedown of that thing. And you know what it really reminded me of? There's been an awful incident recently where a woman who's a mother had gone missing. And
yes,
she was missing for quite a while until she was very sadly found, and she went missing at a sort of a local beauty spot, and people went down to that area and took photographs of themselves near a bench that she was, last seen, or where her belongings were found, and became like these mini detectives, and ostensibly being like, oh, we're trying to be helpful, but there is nothing helpful about going down to a place where someone might have had something awful happen to them, whatever that might be, whether they've fallen, whether they've taken themselves off somewhere, whether someone's done them some harm. Whatever has happened, you should not be going down to that place and taking photographs like some sort of ghoul. And when her body was recovered, someone went and videoed that. And again, like a TikTok true crimer. And that really, really affected me at the time as someone who watches these documentaries, and really made me think, oh, you've got to be really careful about this, and there are some real ethical issues. And that's what this episode really reminded me of. Really, there's a bit at the end where they're all in the pub and they're wearing the masks of the murderer.
Yeah.
Like it's fancy dress. And I thought that was so cleverly done, because that does happen.
It 100% would happen.
Yeah, it does happen. Even if you're thinking about near us, a man who committed some horrific crimes called Loch, and there has recently been an ITV drama which I wouldn't cover on the podcast because I was out with friends the night that Loch murdered and devastated the lives of a number of people in this area. And I couldn't watch the ITV drama because I knew from the interviews that were being done at the time that the family members, not only of the victims, but also of his family members, of the children that he had and other people who knew him, they were being deeply affected by this dramatisation of what had gone on. And it reminded me of that. It reminded me of people who, when they talked about that dramatisation, there was almost like a comedy value to it. And because it's from this area, because it touches closer, that again made me really think, oh, hang on, and this isn't funny. This is, there were some slightly weird moments in that involving Paul Gascoigne, for example, the footballer who turned up in a state of poor mental health.
And I think that was the moment, because I was in Glasgow at the time, but yeah, I knew someone who was in Rothbury at the time, and we were really fucking scared for him because they were in danger. There was an armed gunman who had killed going around there.
Yes, and they couldn't find him, and so all of that really rang true with this show, because I can imagine people doing that. And we have seen it happen in our own vicinity.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really, really good. Although I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I was a little bit like, oh, it's a shame I've worked it out. As soon as the camera lingered on those Bergerac videos, I thought, we don't have VHS tapes in these sort of dramas for no reason. Yeah. And they were all sort of like, they've got the handwritten on the side and then some numbers. I thought, oh, she's involved in this in some way. These are going to be videos of appalling crimes.
I didn't put the pieces together. I knew that they would come back to, like, the Bergerac thing would come back, and it didn't put the pieces together, but then I wasn't looking for that. I'm just happy to go along with it, whereas you are constantly trying to work this out.
It's true, yeah. I thought
which is the frustrating thing when I'm watching a lot of shows with you.
Oh, it's true, yeah, I know.
When we watched Westworld, like you were like, do you think about this? Do you think about this? I'm like, not really thought about that since I'd switched it off, but I need to. Apparently, look, because the logo's different between the two.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. This is what I think, which translate as this is what I've seen on a podcast.
Yeah, probably. I didn't see the ending though. I didn't see the whole thing with the BAFTAs and the sort of the film within the film, and but I thought it was very cleverly done, because that's exactly how they would pitch it, wouldn't they? We want the personal angle. We want, they thought they were making film. It's a bit Blair Witchy actually at times. Yes. Did you feel that when they went to the house? And I really liked the references. There were lots of like little references, little pop culture references.
At one point, I thought that Pod, and I don't know what his name is in this, was going to be involved, and that was it. And I thought he was taking them down there to But obviously no.
Pod from Game of Thrones.
Yes,
he was so good in this.
So well played. So that
Such
little
a line.
that little bit of when he says things like, "Oh yeah, would name it after you," with the all this.
Like he's like a mate that you go back home. And a mate when you're in London, where he sees that as like, oh, you've gone to London, haven't you? And he hasn't quite caught up with the politics of the era, and he's still just a little bit, but not really overtly. It's just that real subtle lack of awareness, and lack of education. But then at the same time, there were times where he was very straightforward, and obviously he's very sweary, and he's very straightforward in his language. Which was actually quite funny, and then also darkness, like you say, he could absolutely have been involved, because every now and again, especially with his dad, the wonderful John Hannah, who I was so happy when I saw him walk at the back of the pub. I was like, it's John Hannah. You wondered whether he was abusing him, or there was something very dark going on there. So brilliantly played, because you don't just get that from the script. That is someone embodying this character and playing it in lots of different ways. I really enjoyed, and I knew John Hannah would have a bit more to it, because he wouldn't just be hanging around the back. Monica Dolan has played lots of really awful characters, and so my spidey senses are always on when she comes in. I think it's mainly because I think she played Rose West, and and so my brain forever will forever put her in that category of, oh, she's probably playing a wrong one. But yeah, brilliantly done here again. Because she gets to play both sides of, the very quiet, meek mum. You can't say anything. You're going home to your boyfriend's mum, and you're just saying the wrong thing, and she's giving you loads of carbs, and she's not quite saying the right thing at the beginning as well. Like, where are you from originally? You kind of, And so it's all that sort of very awkward, bringing your girlfriend home to see your mum sort of thing. But so she gets to play both these sides, and I absolutely love the dark ending. I love the fact that the girlfriend, doesn't make it. I love the fact that I really enjoyed that thing of, for your film.
Yes.
That there's
very, very dark.
Very, very dark. Yeah. And I really like the ending where he's just sat in the room with his BAFTA, but clearly just, what has he got now?
Yeah.
What's he got now? He should have gone and done the egg documentary.
I liked the flashback, the way that they did the flashback to the things that had been said, which indicated that she was the person behind it.
Yeah, the whole thing about the cameras.
The fact that they put that in the trailer for the show.
Okay.
I thought it was really clever because it is cliched when you go back and you see someone remembering it. But yeah, doing it that way makes it so much more organic. The reveal there. Do you want to talk about the Flash?
Oh yes, let's do the Flash. And funnily enough, as if by magic, there's thunder and lightning just started. I can see it out of our window. It's absolutely pelting down. And there's just been a bit of a flash.
I'm going to chuck some chemicals on me and jump outside.
I know, so am I. If I can go that fast and maybe go back in time. Okay, let's do spoilers for the Flash.
So yeah, the first scene, absolutely just idiotic for me. I could not get my head around why that was put in. It almost seemed like it was put in something directed by a different director or by a different writer that was put in.
Totally.
Especially when you've got the contrast of Batman actually doing quite a serious chase at the same time.
But you know what? I felt halfway through, I was like, is this like it felt like a fan film. It felt like a really random fan film that we had just been popped into, almost like a short that we'd been popped into, to the point where he's going, Alfred's going, well, Batman, you can't let him fall in the river because the toxic chemicals will go in there and then everyone in the world will be, it was that sort of thing. I laughed because I was like, what am I watching? Like, the dialogue's terrible. It's almost like an Adam West Batman, and maybe that's what they're going for. I mean, I don't know. And then obviously for me, a load of babies falling out of a window is just not funny to me. I know it can be to other people because it's obviously it's ludicrous. It isn't really happening, and the babies look very cartoonish. They look very cartoonish, but also put in a microwave, and it just really, really stood on all of the things that make me very upset in life. I couldn't cope with it, I'm afraid.
So the point which I did laugh was once you've gone past all the babies, it turns around and there's also a therapy dog falling.
Yes.
And I think that's like,
this is awful, isn't it? Because I clearly wasn't that worried about animals. But the therapy dog with his little tongue, his big tongue coming out of the side and thing, I found that, I didn't find it funny, but I kind of got away with that because that just seemed a bit lewd. Maybe if it was all little therapy dogs and maybe I would have been alright, but it's the fact it's babies. They were clearly in a unit. There were lots of I think there was an incubator at one point, or maybe my brain has created one. And because I've had, and also you have had, a child that spent 4 months in neonatal intensive care, and we've also had a baby who is very sadly no longer with us, that sort of stuff, in whatever context, is never going to play well in my brain. And that, it just got off on the wrong foot for me.
It did with me. The other thing was, I was sure I had the final scene of this worked out quite early.
Okay.
Because I was absolutely convinced that there was going to be some circumstances by which Barry Allen had caused the death of his mother.
Oh, yes, agreed. Yeah, that went through my mind as well.
That made total sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we don't know who's done it. Like, we never hear anyone come in or do anything. It's a random thing, but she gets a knife in there.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's going to be rushing around and knife's going to fall. Then. But that's never even addressed, is it?
I mean, he doesn't even go and look. And I was waiting for him to not only... Well, even if he just wants to let his mum die...
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want the world to end. He could go and see who the person is who murdered her.
Yeah.
And then in his current timeline, in his back where everything's normal, he could go and hunt that person down and look for them, and do you know what I mean? He would know who they were without changing the Oh, I hated that. I hated it.
I
Because
found
isn't
it
the
quite funny.
No, but the whole point is, right, he is... The whole point of this film, this is what this film is telling us. It's saying, don't change the past, no matter how small, because then things go wrong. So what does he bloody well do? He goes back because he needs to put it all right again. He needs to take the can out of his mum's basket. But then he goes and does something majorly different. You know, it's meant to be this butterfly effect.
That's not majorly different,
It
though,
is
is it?
majorly different.
No, right. So that's no, right. You cannot compare. You cannot compare the saving of a mother to someone got a can off a top shelf. Because
But isn't the whole point that it's don't make even the smallest of changes? Isn't that the through line? This whole idea of the butterfly effect. You could step on a single blade of grass, a different one, and that changes everything. I thought that was the whole point of it.
yeah, but it's. I mean, but also you could step on a blade of grass and not do it. Like there is a short story, and I can't remember quite who it's by or what it is, but there is something about a time machine, and someone goes dinosaur hunting.
Okay.
And but what they do is they go and they make sure that they shoot a dinosaur just before it would have died anyway.
Right.
And so that's
So it's not
a very
actually
minor.
changing.
So it's not actually taking away a dinosaur when it's
Okay.
Yeah, and stuff happens. Blah blah
Right,
blah blah
okay.
blah. But yeah, so they go back. They see a dinosaur that would fall into a ravine and die, and then they take people back to shoot that dinosaur before. You can step on a blade of grass,
Yeah.
a butterfly flaps its wings, and blah blah blah. But yeah, there is a minor change of getting a can off a top shelf rather than the bottom shelf.
Also, my other point was that if the dad had always looked up, then surely, even though the footage wasn't brilliant, you would still be able to see that it was the dad all those years ago. The whole point of it wasn't it, that the footage was so bad that they cleaned it up, but he just couldn't see his face because he never looked up? Or was it just that the footage was so bad you didn't even know it was him in his cap or whatever?
Right, so original timeline.
Yeah.
The footage was so damaged you couldn't really see what was going on.
Right, so he couldn't see
but
anything
then
at all.
they cleaned it up.
Yes.
And he never looked up,
He never
so
looked
therefore
up.
he didn't.
Right.
When Barry Allen goes back, he moves the cans to the top shelf.
Yes.
So that when he goes forward again, the cleaned up footage shows Ron Livingston's face as he reaches up to get the can.
Okay, I understand that.
I'm not sure you do.
I do. Oi, I do get it. I just didn't like. I didn't like the ending. I didn't like this whole idea of changing something. What I would have preferred would be for him to go and watch the event, albeit that would be very traumatic, and then follow maybe the guy who, and presumably it is a guy whoever committed the murder, follow them, find out who they are, and then in the future timeline, actually bring that person to justice. I mean, he's meant to be in the Justice League, and he doesn't bring anyone to justice. His dad's still in prison for years and years until he eventually comes out. And then I hated the ending with George Clooney. I hated it.
Really?
I hated every minute of it. I really like. That's maybe a bit strong. I like the Batman, the Batman and Robin film.
What
It
did
is
you
of its
dislike about
kind.
it? It's
I
just
just
a nice
didn't-
little fun
Oh, I
nod that
just-
he's changed it, and it's
no,
instead
I
of it
don't
being
like
Keaton,
it.
then it's...
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the end of Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Oh, we've come back to what we think is the normal world, and something I'm not going to spoil that, but something major has changed. It really reminded me of that.
The end of Tim Burton's
Planet of the
Planet of the
Apes.
Apes makes no sense,
Yes,
whereas
well,
this...
this makes no sense.
Of course it does,
Why is Batman different?
because something's changed in the timeline.
But why? Because he put some tomatoes on the top of a shelf.
Well, things have changed, definitely, just by them being in the past.
Very confused. Well, I'm just really, really confused. Everything else is the same. His mum's dead, his dad's in prison, all of his mates are the same, his would-be girlfriend's the same.
We don't know that, though, do we? We don't know that, because we've seen about 4 minutes of footage.
It's set up as that. And then different, but it just didn't make any sense to me, hon. It really didn't. And it really annoyed me. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a throwaway thing. I just didn't like it.
I found it a cute little joke to go out on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We've got to address the massive globe-shaped elephant in the room.
Go on then.
So, the third act of this, we see timelines crashing together, and we see big globes crashing through timelines.
Worlds, different worlds.
Yeah. And we see the George Reeves version of Superman.
Yes.
We see Christopher Reeves and Helen Slater.
Which I thought was very, very poignant, actually. I found that very poignant.
And then we see another Superman fighting. We see Adam West's Batman.
Oh, yes.
And then we see another Superman fighting, and wouldn't you know it, it's Nick Cave. Not Nick Cave. Nick Cave. Nick Cave. That would be brilliant.
I mean, I'd love it with Nick Cave.
Nick Cage as Superman from Superman Lives, which is the Did you get the joke with the spider?
No. The only thing I know about that is I've seen the photographs of Nick Cage in his Superman costume. You know, the early sort of takes on costume design and everything, yeah. But the spider, I just didn't get.
So Kevin Smith did a early write on the script for Superman Lives.
Okay.
I think it's called Superman Lives.
Yeah, I think it is.
And he went and met the producer, who is... I can't remember what his name is now, but he started out as Barbra Streisand hairdresser.
Okay, right.
And how this producer had just somehow managed to come through to be like a really, really like a successful producer in Hollywood and was producing this film. Mm-hmm. And this producer kept on telling him, you need a spider in there, you need a spider, because spiders are the most dangerous creatures in the world. And he's like, really? I don't feel like a spider would attack Superman.
With Superman, yeah. Is it like a person who turns into a spider?
No. It doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And then he's like, and then that film got cancelled. And then the next film of his that I went to cinema, and I'm watching Wild Wild West. And then at the end of Wild Wild West, yeah.
Oh wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a brilliant bit of stand-up just from him being like... Kevin Smith's obviously very acerbic with the way he tells the story.
See, you know what? I didn't... Because I'm a great big nerd, and I love the references to Eric Stoltz and Back to the Future. I didn't need that explaining for me, though. I was a bit annoyed that actually they went into so much of the explanation. And but I quite like the alternative casting of when they were talking about Kevin Bacon being in Top Gun, and that's... Yeah. I like that. I love that sort of thing. And I didn't mind the nods to these different worlds, although I would have liked to have seen Dean Cain.
Justice of Brandon Routh.
Brandon Routh. And some, there's all these little random bits that you kind of like, oh, I would have kind of liked to see that. And I thought when it came on, when Nick Cage came on, I thought, oh, this is just like proper fandom, what's it called? Fan service.
Yes.
And I thought, well, I quite like this. Like a bit like you like the George Clooney thing, a bit throwaway. Yeah. I didn't mind the Nick Cage thing. I thought, oh, it's a deep cut for those of us who kind of know the background to these sorts of things. But the CGI is so bad. It reminded me of, and I'm not the first person to say this is not an original thought, but it really reminded me of The Matrix. The later sequels of The Matrix, like Reloaded, where Keanu is just running round and round to a million Smiths, and they just all merge into like a big muddle, and all their faces are just so pliable, and actually the same thing happened with Supergirl in this as well. There's a scene where Supergirl is fighting various baddies, and I thought, oh, this really reminds me of things in The Matrix where, when Keanu, when Neo's twirling and he's going round and round, he's almost like he's knocking over the Smiths there's a sound of a bowling alley at one point they use in one of the sequels, but he's bending and he's knocking them all over, and they just look like computer game people. And that's fine because that was then, but this is now. And it really took me out of the film.
It is a bit like when you meet like Oddjob in GoldenEye in like on the N64, and it's just a face plastered onto like the same body as James Bond and the same body with a little few pixels to make a hat. Yeah, I mean the CGI was absolutely shocking. I mean, you go past Henry Cavill as Superman at one point quite early on in the film. Right, okay. And it just looks awful. Yeah.
Maybe I missed some of that. Is that when he's in that sort of, when he's doing the Speed Force and essentially the past is twirling around him rather than in the planet?
Yeah.
Right, so then you kind of see, almost like coming towards you like great big balloon people.
Yeah.
Which, actually, I didn't mind that quite so much, but you're right, if it's things that you, I really wasn't that taken with the CGI, but then I was thinking, with that cartoonish version at the beginning of the therapy dog and the babies, I was wondering whether this was like something that was meant to be, but it can't be, can it, when you're doing actual action scenes and when you're trying to put Nick Cage's face on someone? It just can't be. You can't want to go into this and think, oh, I'm going to do some really shit CGI or some, CGI that really needs a few more weeks. That can't be the case.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly what's happened. I think they've run out of time. I mean, having said that, they've had so long on this, but yeah, I mean, a lot of it looks like, the TSG films logo. Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of looked like that, like just like this like stone man that was there. Yeah. But I mean, having said that, I absolutely fucking loved like seeing George Reeves and Adam West and everything like that coming through.
Yeah.
I will put a little asterisk next to that.
Okay.
Because Warner Brothers are starting to get a habit for doing this. There is obviously Space Jam, the next legacy, whatever it is, where they absolutely hammer out their other content.
It's all the IP.
Yeah. And I've not seen it mentioned as much, but Shazam Fury 2. Of the Gods. Yeah. Like, there is references to Game of Thrones, there's references to... there's so many references to, like, other properties. Even so much as, like, characters where, like... the Iron Giant on a t-shirt and Gremlins on a t-shirt and Goonies on t-shirt and Annabelle, the doll Annabelle appears in like the background of a child psychologist shot and it's like weird. And now this and I'm like this is starting to become like a corporate like obligation and as much as it worked for me in this case, as much as it didn't work for me in Shazam because I was just like, oh fuck off, and it's definitely in Space Jam I just didn't care. Yeah. I don't think I'm invested enough in this, and I just felt like, you know what, it's a fucking swing and go for it. Like, if you want to like do some shitty CGI, like disgraceful CGI, but if you want to show me like Nick Cage fighting a spider, I'm there. I'm here for this all day. Like, absolutely.
It's such a shame they couldn't get him to actually do it. I think that's it's a shame that he just didn't get into the suit and actually, because I think that would have had much more of an effect. There's two things I want to mention before we finish.
Yes.
I'd like to say how much I loved seeing Michael Keaton as Batman. I just every time he was on screen I loved it, even though I was spoiled with the whole I'm Batman thing and let's get nuts and all of that. I just thought he brought such a sense of just solemnity and wistfulness and this whole idea of I once was Batman and that why are you putting your hand up?
I don't get the let's get nuts
it's
line.
it's just a throwback to one of the, I can't remember whether it was Batman
I don't remember
Returns
that.
Oh, do you know?
No, I don't remember that line. I did like the reference. I did like other references, like how much do you weigh and stuff like that. Obviously, it's from the Vicky Vale character. Yeah.
But don't you just think that every time he comes on, he just brings such a presence because of the history of that character, but also just who he is. I just really like him.
I think the thing that I preferred more was the return to Danny Elfman's score.
Yes, and that as well.
When
kind
that
of
comes out, and. There are elements with it that are used through loads of different scenes, and I just sort of sat back and went, yeah.
Tell you what I'm sick of though in terms of score.
What?
Bloody Wonder Woman. Oh, she comes in for 2 seconds and then off she goes again. I mean, give her her own film. I'm sick of it. I know.
One of which was shite.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just sick of that whole, oh, here I am for 2 seconds and off I go again.
Gal Gadot is having a spectacular
doing all this
23 for cameos.
Exactly.
That's 3 now.
I know. And I think I'm just a bit sick of that. Anyway, my second point would be the person who played Supergirl, is her name Kara? It's Supergirl's name. Is it like Kara Zoa or something like that? But I can never remember. I really liked her. She was not on screen for long enough. She didn't have enough to do. But for what she did too, I thought there was a real depth to her character. I sort of felt that she really got someone who had been really mistreated by a place that she'd come to for refuge, essentially. And there's a line that Zod says about, the infant did not survive. And I really felt that sense of pain and anger, and that she then comes out with it. I really hope she gets like her own show or film or whatever, because I thought she was really good.
Well, I mean, she's come from nowhere. Her only other real acting credits are in like shorts, and she has spent 3 years on The Young and the Restless.
Oh, okay. I don't know that.
It's an American TV show. Okay. American soap, daytime soap.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
It's like Days of Our Lives.
It's great. I just thought the look, the way that she portrayed someone in pain, I thought was really good. I love a bit of pain. So I just really enjoyed that part of it. And I think her and Batman together, obviously the darker elements, that's what I really enjoyed. And
again, absolute a MacGuffin.
Well, yes, I know. But I really enjoyed the fact that we weren't looking at another Superman. That we actually were, oh, look, a woman. That was nice to throw someone else in the mix, you know?
Got a Wonder Woman.
Oh, come on.
She appears in every of these films.
Oh, I know.
She's got her
but
own
still,
score.
yeah. I know.
No. I love that score.
I know you do, but it's just the fact that it's almost like, oh, look here, we've just put that in, and I did roll my eyes. Although I did like the lasso of truth, especially, I know the whole thing was that with the Flash and his sort of sex joke, but actually the bit that I really enjoyed was the psychology of Batman and him talking about his ego, and there was this lovely line about if I was really worried about it, I could just give all my money away, but I don't. Yeah. And I was like, that's brilliant. I love that. Anyway, any more to say about the Flash? Probably a lot, to be honest with you.
No, I think because the middle part of this film, and I'm not the first people to have said this.
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It is just a point to get to.
You just go from one thing to another to another.
I mean, Zod's hardly in there.
Oh, all of that doesn't matter, does it? And I think we alluded to it in the non-spoiler section. This whole idea of the main thread being his mum has died gets lost really, really early on, doesn't it? Where he meets his other self and suddenly he's telling his other self he's got to get his powers. Why? Why does he have to get his powers if this other self is having this lovely life with his mum? Why does he have to then go through the same thing that Barry Allen has gone through? I didn't
he wants
really
to live in
that.
The current world, he wants to live in his current life just with his mum there.
I didn't understand. But, it's me.
Okay, right.
You'll have to get some pasta out and start explaining it to me like Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I'm going to get Oscar Isaac to do it.
Oh, God, don't. What is that a reference to?
It's a reference to Spider-Man.
Okay. Okay, thanks everyone for sticking along with us for this
nice shorter
lovely
thing, which
short.
is currently... only 40 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, wow.
It's felt like longer.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks a lot, and we'll see you later.
See you soon.
Bye.
Hi everyone, it's 6:30 on Tuesday morning, which is why I'm being a bit whispery. You might be a bit confused by Mark's proclamation that we only had recorded 40 minutes of content, given that the podcast is now, I think, over an hour. Mark had looked down at the podcast recorder and had seen that we had 40 hours left of recording. So don't worry, you're not going mad. We are. See you later.